I'm gonna start recording.
We're recording.
Well,
What? You got to do both. Wait.
wait, what?
Okay, I needed that.
He needed his little wake up
We
clap.
edited the last one, and Hunter edited our audio, which makes it difficult for me to edit the video. So
Oh, you can tell me
sure.
what you need.
I just did it.
Okay.
That's exactly what I needed.
All right, let's go ahead and get started then. All right, so
Awesome.
today we are joined by Sheryl Moore. She is, I don't know, CEO of Wink Inc. I don't know what you call herself, so which is a research firm for life and annuity companies. So welcome onto the show, Sheryl.
Wait, that is what they
Thanks
call it.
very much, Hunter.
Is it?
You know,
Is it
not everybody decides to call themselves CEO. Sometimes it's owner, sometimes it's,
Oh,
founder. Everybody's got their own.
Well, I'm shareholder and CEO. We have a different president of my company, but I've demoted myself to shareholder and CEO.
See, she's not even promoted. It's demoted. No, I was kidding.
Let someone else take the title and the pressure.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Smart. There's a reason you're on this show. All right. Tell us a little bit about it's Wink Inc.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
I couldn't call myself just plain old Wink. That would be too easy.
Right.
But Wink is a third-party market research firm that tracks life insurance and annuity insurance companies, their products, the features on those products, as well as the credited rates, sales, and marketing of those products. So we track how much life insurance and annuity sales there are every year. So for example, we would be the ones who would say Jackson National is the #1 seller of variable annuities in the United States. And their Perspective 2 VA is their top selling variable annuity. And they sold this much of it in banks, this much through wirehouses, independent agents, bang, bang, bang.
So do they contract you to do this, or are you just compiling this information, then they can pay you to have access for it or to it?
So we developed a survey that I send to the insurance companies every quarter, and then they send the data back to us and they pay to have access to the data.
So you created this
Yes.
whole industry. Yeah. See, I love that.
I bought part of it from a gentleman who was just tracking very high level data. And then I decided to buy it from him and kind of put it on steroids and zoom down into the really minute micro data that would be more interesting to product developers and people who work in product management at insurance companies.
That is so interesting.
They care about it. They care about it a lot. So,
well, they want to see what their competitive positioning is and how they stack up against the people who they are competing against more than anyone. And they want to use it to help with their pricing of their insurance products too.
Right. Just everything about that I love, because you see, there's a misnomer that there's not new inventions. There's nothing new, like everything's been created. And just the efficiency and this the strategy of seeing a market holder, someone who holds a lot of market share. What do they need? How can I help them? How can I monetize that? That's just, I love that, the concept of that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
That's very cool. So how long have you guys been around?
We have been in operation for 17 years now.
Wow.
Okay.
And yeah, go ahead.
I was saying you didn't start there though. You didn't decide like, hey, one day I'm gonna jump in the insurance world. What got you into the industry in general?
Oh, well, that's actually a more interesting story.
That's more interesting.
I'm easy to interest apparently.
I was married to a police officer who went to federal prison. And yeah.
Okay.
I told you it was more interesting.
Yeah, it is.
So I was suddenly a very single mom with 3 kids and no child support. I live in Des Moines, Iowa, or Des Moines, as the fancy farmers like to call it. So I live in Des Moines, and we are the insurance capital of the United States and the annuity capital of the world. And I knew that I needed a job. I had been a stay-at-home mom. I knew that I needed a job where if my employer was bought out by somebody or went bankrupt or something, that I could walk across the street and not miss a paycheck. So insurance was a logical solution. I started working in telephone customer service for an insurance company, which, by the way, is probably the best way to learn a lot in one job. So I learned a lot about the company that I worked for, but I started getting promoted into other areas of the company until I was in charge of competitive intelligence and product development. So I assisted that company in developing their life insurance and annuity products, but then also, I guess the best way to put competitive intelligence is spying on other insurance companies.
Yeah, corporate espionage.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not corporate espionage. I mean, and we're not breaking any antitrust rules. There's no collusion. We're using publicly available information, but for lack of a better word, and because I like to make my job sound sexy, spying on other insurance companies.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the title, yeah, just, corporate or what did you, sorry, I messed it up, but it's just
Competitive
a,
intelligence.
Espionage.
yeah. He said the other word and I was like, oh, that's the wrong one.
Well,
But
they're not there. So you're researching, stuff that's public knowledge. You're not buttoning up an
It's
employee.
not exactly easy to find, but it is
Mhm.
publicly available.
Right.
you just had to develop some good relationships with, independent agents. So they'll tell you all the deets. No.
That's espionage.
Well, that is part of what I do today.
Yeah.
So I left that insurance company to go develop a niche product called index life insurance and indexed annuities for a larger multi-line global insurance company. And I made it there probably about a year before I wanted to stab my eyes out. Because that company distributed their products through a career agency distribution model where the agents are captive, and competitive intelligence and captive distribution are really oxymorons. They don't fit together because the insurance company's position is if those agents have to sell whatever we give them, we'll give them what we want. So they don't have to be competitive.
No.
So it wasn't a good place for me because I really love entrepreneurship. I'm really jazzed by competition. So I started looking for a job that did something similar to what I did at another insurance company in Des Moines, which if we're the insurance capital, you'd think I'd have some choices. But the challenge is I'm not an actuary. And product development jobs where you're not an actuary are few and far between. And so I really did not have any other options. And I didn't want to spoon my eyes out. So my only option was to really start my own company. So I cashed out what was left of my 201k, as I like to call it. After the dot-com bubble burst, I lost a ton of money. So I cashed it out and started Wink Inc. And that was 17 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, this is a heavily male dominated industry. So, I mean, how has that affected your career path and everything like that?
Well, it was really hard getting into the industry because I was in my mid-20s when I started my company. And I thought I was going to start this company where insurance companies would pay me big checks to consult with them on indexed life insurance and indexed annuities, which I specialized in. And what I did not count on was 65-year-old white guys were going to be condescending to me and not only not take my advice, but not pay me for it either. So I kind of had to put my consulting plans on hold and develop the market research firm that is today Wink Inc. But I started writing articles, doing keynote events, became a thought leader in the industry by participating in regulatory groups and working with like the Department of Labor and the SEC and NASA, NAFA, NELBA, NAFA, different regulatory groups to just help people in their understanding of who I am and what I do. And I'll say that today my consulting practice is thriving. So I'm very lucky, but it's been a lot of hard work.
Yeah. The camera just went out there for a second. So Jake fixed it though.
Yeah, a couple times, unfortunately.
Oh, got it.
Organic and raw.
Perfect. But that's interesting. See, I mean, yeah, you learned how to pivot though, and that's what's important,
I
right?
had to. Yeah. But I will say I still deal with challenges being a woman in a man's world.
Yeah.
You know, I've had more than one guy try and follow me back to my hotel room after a keynote or be aggressive toward me. And I frequently get called the B word just because I'm assertive and a woman. You know, you can't be assertive and not be the B word if you work in a power position. So I deal with that every now and then. But for the most part, I don't see my being a woman as a hindrance in what I do today.
Yeah, definitely not. And I mean, I can say because we're young, but I don't hold those kind of views. So
no,
things are changing, right?
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, it looks that way to me. I hope that's really the case.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's since I work in the insurance industry, it's really interesting because I mean, it's coming across somebody who works on, the production side is super rare, just being a woman. And then especially, I think it's way more common in the home office to see underwriters, support staff, being women, but
not out in the front. Yeah,
definitely not.
I'm thinking about the office I used to work at, and there was, I think it was all dudes. I'm pretty sure it was all guys.
Yeah.
All of our women were support staff or managers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I do a keynote, it's not unusual if in a room full of 250 people, I'm one of less than a dozen women. Gosh. And most of the people who are women work for the company that brought me in.
Yeah.
Well, what would you, I mean, I don't think we ever really dove deep. I remember Megan and Lacey, we did talk about this a little bit, but this might be fun to spend some time just on that. What would you tell someone who's in that position right now that's a woman trying to fight for recognition or just to be listened to? Or respected?
Yeah, I'd tell them to be persistent just because there are jerks everywhere in the world, right. And there are women jerks and men jerks, but you can't let one person get you down. So you have to be persistent and keep going and look at those instances of adversity as a challenge for yourself to keep going and doing better and make yourself better and, be a master of your craft. But I would also say to men that they should mentor a woman and help to support a woman in the business and show tremendous leadership, because having diversity in the workplace makes everything better. And there just aren't many women in positions of power in the life insurance industry, much less on the front lines, and so we need more men to be upstanders and support us.
Right.
Yeah. That's very true. I mean, that's the flip side, right? Even if you see something bad happening from a man's perspective, you gotta
say something.
Well, say something. Yeah.
That's also, this might sound challenging, but I don't mean it to be challenging. Because it's not all that story, right? Like I can imagine that there's also not a lot of people, because it just seems intimidating. Or
I think there's not a lot of women in the insurance industry, mostly because this is a commission-based career, right? And most women are moms or caregivers of some kind, and leaving a salaried position to a fully commissionable job is a really scary thing if you're a caregiver, I think. So I think that's part of the challenge. But I also think that there's some STEM issues behind it. We don't really encourage women to go into the finance industry. We don't provide a lot of education that would facilitate them to show interest in the finance industry.
Right.
But I think that we have a lot of really great men in the industry who do a fantastic job of lifting up women and showing that they're competent leaders too. So I didn't mean that to look.
No. I wasn't pushing back. I was just, I think that's an encouragement as well, just because it seems intimidating. And yes, it is a male dominated industry. Go forward, take a step and try, that's what you're saying.
Well, the interesting thing is that when it comes to insurance, women, statistically speaking, trust other women with financial advice more than they trust men.
Mhm.
And women are usually the financial decision makers.
I was just going to say, we're pretty notorious for being poor stewards of our money.
And on top of that, who's going to buy more insurance? The person who's more risk averse, the person who's more risk taking.
That's right. That's right. Women are known to be more risk averse. So that exactly is a good point, Hunter. Yeah. So I think really it's a breeding ground that's ripe for women to succeed, but we just need more women to take the leap and show some interest.
Yeah. I mean, I think that'll happen more and more. And, you know, I think there's a lot of a shift definitely in the industry right now. I mean, the old sales methods, I think, are starting to go away for more better methods, at least from what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I'm definitely seeing a lot more encouragement of women in the workplace and in the field. And there are a lot of groups that I work with who specifically have women-oriented groups in their FMOs. So that shows me that something's changing, because those groups didn't exist with many FMOs, say 20 years ago when I started in this business. I think there was one FMO that I was aware of that had a women's group, and now we have about a dozen.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, which is great. I mean, it makes sense for money reasons as well, besides just being inclusive. So
yeah, exactly.
You know, there is monetary gain there if that's all you care about. No, but
I was just thinking about the commission-based thing in real estate. I'm in real estate, and I think there's more women in real estate than there are men.
Big time.
But going that direction, I mean, sounds a lot more fun, at least on the nose, than insurance and finance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
how many of those women in real estate do you think are caregivers? I wonder.
It's pretty common. It's pretty common, but also people don't realize that the majority of people who call themselves real estate agents, like overwhelmingly so, are part-time. So they're not.
Yeah,
full-time.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's an excellent point.
Yeah, because it is a job that you can do if you hold your boundaries.
Yeah.
As a caregiver.
I mean, that's also goes to the insurance side of the world too. I mean.
Yeah, that's true. But, we don't have many distributors who really focus on people working part-time in this business. There are a few, but most people are trying to recruit agents to make a career out of it.
Right.
Most, yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's a difference in liability there. I mean, what's your opinion? Can you sell single family homes without too much liability, without a ton of knowledge?
I mean, at one of the brokerages that I worked at, they are all about liability, and we carry a lot of it.
Fair enough.
But yeah. Anyways, we're getting too in the weeds.
Yeah.
So we may have already touched on this. The origin story of you in entrepreneurship. What's the why? What's the big reason to go and do this in such a male-dominated industry? I mean, spearheading a new industry. Why?
So my first child was born with birth defects and health problems that required him to have surgery at least once a year. And being a single mom of 3, I needed to put food on the table. But my job was so highly specialized because I'm not an actuary that I couldn't find work elsewhere doing something similar. And I work in a highly compensated position. So unless I wanted to take a huge pay cut and not be able to afford to support my kids and make my house payment, I needed to have some entrepreneurial spirit and start my own company. So literally, when I realized that I couldn't get insurance companies to pay me to consult with them, I went out and bought HTML for Dummies and learned how to develop your own website. And I started a website called annuityspecs.com, where I pulled regulatory filings for all the annuities in the country and basically boiled them down to a 1 or 2 page quick reference that says, here's what this annuity is. And put them on the website so that people could compare different annuities or search for different annuities. And that was really where Wink started, was from my dining room table with a copy of HTML for Dummies.
Yeah, that's incredible.
So
Go ahead.
I needed the health insurance. That's the short answer. I needed the health insurance for my son. And so he was the driver for most everything that I did with starting this business 17 years ago.
We're gonna bail on the camera because it's not working today.
We're just gonna go to this one.
Yeah.
The built-in one.
Apologies at home if you're watching. Thanks for riding with us. Yeah, I don't think we haven't really spent a whole lot of time just diving into the whys. But I think it's good to hear a lot of people who push through adversity. There's a reason, discomfort, hearing and dealing with the things that you've dealt with is not easy.
I like attention too. Don't get me wrong.
Well, it's just, it
wasn't all altruistic. I really do love attention, and being the only female in a room full of 65-year-old white guys, there's something to say for that too.
I appreciate your transparency.
I'm going to keep it real.
Yeah. That's the whole point. I have heard statistics about first generation people who have immigrant parents, and how there's more drive. And it's the why concept is something that I find near and dear to my heart, because it's hard to be an entrepreneur. It's hard to work a commission-based job. And if you're just doing it for money, then it's easier to fizzle out. It's not.
Yeah.
These people, you're not going to make $1 million overnight unless you hit an algorithm or your video goes viral, maybe.
Yeah.
But it's a shot.
Crazy.
Yeah. So thank you. That was very transparent of you.
Yeah.
How old's your son now?
My son died.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. He took his own life 8.5 years ago. He was bullied. And
Wow.
So I lost him at the age of 16, but he would be 25 years old.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I have 4 other living children.
Which we were talking briefly when you're setting up the camera. We were also talking about working weekends. She's like, I learned some work-life balance after some of those things. And so.
Yeah. I
wow.
love what I do. I like to tell people I don't work a single day in my life just because I'm so enamored with what I do for a living. But it used to mean that I worked till 7:00 at night every night, and I work frequently on the weekends. And I just learned after losing my son that it doesn't matter how much I love my job. My kids are only going to be kids for a short while, and I need to enjoy my time with my family. So it was a hard lesson in work-life balance, but it's worked out well for the younger kids.
Yeah. Well, how did you go from working so much?
I appreciate your transparency before we move on. Yeah, I really do.
How did you go from working so much to learning to be effective with less time, though?
I hired more people.
Hey.
Delegate.
Yeah. But that's not.
That was a hard lesson, though, because I'm a control freak. I suffer from obsessive compulsive disorder. So I'm very much a control freak, and it was hard for me to let that go. But I've become an excellent delegator over the past 8.5 years since my son died. And that really has been the secret to my success.
Yeah. We come across this all the time.
Yeah. What was the indicator for you? What was it? You're just getting too stressed, too anxious, not having enough time with the family? When did you decide that?
It was just that when my son died, I realized that my job wasn't what life was about, and I would have given anything to have that time back with my son that I had spent working in the office. And for me, that was just a really harsh realization. So literally the week that I buried my son, I said, no more weekends, no more nights. And I haven't worked nights or weekends since then.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
For my little kids, it has been awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was late coming into work this morning because my 5-year-old wanted to play a game with me, and my team, when I got into the office, was like, hey, you're late coming in today. That's unusual. And I said, well, Xander wanted to play Brain Flakes. So I decided to make time for it because I don't take vacations still very frequently, even if I don't work nights or weekends. I'm terrible at vacation. So I still take those opportunities though when I can.
Yeah. I just got to ask, Xander with a Z or an X?
X.
Sweet. That's my kid's name too.
I was going to say, you have a Xander.
Yeah.
Well, my son who passed away was named Alexander, but we called him AJ.
Yeah.
And so there's another part of the story that's very interesting that I haven't told you. But my second husband was my grade school sweetheart. And we were boyfriend and girlfriend when we were 10 and 11 years old. And then I re-met him 17 years later at the Iowa State Fair, but I didn't recognize him. He didn't look familiar. I just thought, if I don't hit on that guy, who's the best looking guy I've ever seen in my life, I'm going to kick myself. So I hit on him, not knowing who he was. And then come to find out he was my boyfriend when I was 11 years old. So I'm not that kind of girl, but I took him home that night. He's been with me every night since then. And that was almost 21 years ago. But my tubes were tied after my third child, who I had with my first husband. And so my second husband did not have any children of his own. And we tried to go through it in vitro for over 10 years. We lost 5 babies and $75,000. And I was growing hair on my neck, and it was just not a good scene. I was over it. So we decided to ditch in vitro efforts. And a few years later, my son passed away. And literally 2 days after I buried my son, I found out that I was spontaneously pregnant. So I lost my son and had another, my only son, by the way. I lost my only son and had another in less than 8 months' time, 17 years apart.
Wow.
And as if that weren't enough, I went into menopause after that baby was born. And I was a few years into menopause without a cycle and started feeling really sick and didn't know what was going on, and found out that I was halfway through a pregnancy with another little boy.
Wow.
So
talk
AJ,
about a roller coaster.
Wow.
Yeah, AJ's real name was Alexander, but we named miracle baby number 1 Jackson Alexander, and then baby number 2 is Xander. So they both have his namesake.
That is a beautiful thing out of a very sad thing. That is awesome.
I agree. It was very tragic, but a lot of beauty has come from it. And I don't ever take for granted the blessings that I have.
Yeah. And I think your transparency, I can't tell you enough. I hope there are people here that are encouraged by that story, and it might even be a little bit of a challenge to them to take some more time off and prioritize. It's a commonly taught concept, but it's so easy to get caught up in busyness and have your priorities get mixed up without even intending to do so. So you start a business to provide for your family, and that can become something that distracts or detracts.
You're definitely right. You're right. And I should have warned you, they call me either the most transparent person in life insurance or the most honest person in life insurance. So I should have divulged that to you.
I want it all. But yeah, I'm sorry for bringing that up, but I'm honored that you went there and shared. That's truly, I think that, I keep saying this is the point, but the transparency and the vulnerability, growth happens in the messy middle. We just had Buddy Bailey on talking about that, and it's so true. We got to talk about it. We got to come together and share. So that's what you've learned and have gone through is going to benefit us and whoever's listening. So appreciate
Thank you.
that.
I appreciate you giving me a platform to share my story.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. There was it's hard to go through all that, and you learned a lot, guaranteed.
What's so where are you taking the company? What's next in this season?
So we are always working on being better and doing more and being more efficient and effective. And we just rolled out an enhancement on our website where we track the specs of all the products. So what are the different features of all the life insurance and annuities? But we just rolled out an enhancement where you can go to the website and see the marketing collateral that you use to sell the products or to get trained on the products, as well as like interest rate sheets and the regulatory filings that we pull in order to get that information. So that might not sound exciting to you guys, but to people who work in product development for insurance companies, that's kind of invaluable. And right now we're working with a omni-channel group that sells term life insurance direct to consumers to develop a competitive intelligence tool for pricing term life insurance. So you would be able to go in and say, you know, I've got a male age 45, best non-smoking class who wants $1 million in term life insurance. And we would be able to tell you what everybody would charge for that all on one screen.
Huh. Have you run into Virtual Financial at all? Have you heard of that company?
Yeah, I've heard of them.
Okay. Yeah, just it has nothing to do with the show, and it's totally off topic. They're just owned by some friends of mine, and they're a rather big company that's doing some cool stuff with the virtual model.
That's really interesting. I'd love to talk to you about them offline.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's really cool. So, I mean, I think that's the future of most insurance industries. It's going to be more commoditized, right? Where you can kind of just come on and
streamline
and just figure out what you want,
right?
More or less from on your own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
To that, but
yeah, I know. That's why I was like hesitating, because it will help, I think, to narrow the uninsured and the underinsured gap. But then we're dealing with a whole other issue, because you have a lot of people who have term life insurance and then they develop health problems and they don't have permanent life insurance when their term runs out. So
yeah,
it's got its challenges in addition to having its benefits.
Right.
Yeah. And then
there'll always be problems for people to solve.
This might just because I'm in the industry, but there's also lots of, I think, bad information about annuities and life insurance out on the internet.
Oh,
and there's a lot less when it comes to investments. There's, you know, everybody preaches about investments, but very few people preach
follow
about
the money, Hunter.
Yeah.
Follow the money.
Well, I say this too, but I know. The money, I don't know money that.
So for your benefit, because I run a third-party market research firm, I do the fact checking for all the journalists who write about life insurance and annuities. So like Leslie Schism at the Wall Street Journal, whenever she's writing about annuities, she'll email me and ask for statistics and say, is it accurate to say this or what have you? And for that reason, I often call out the media when they get it wrong about life insurance or annuities. So I'll correct them.
Good on you.
And publicly shame them, actually, not in an effort to, you know, dig at them, but just to say, hey, I need to hold you accountable here. You're influencing millions of people in a public domain. I want you to get it right. So I know firsthand how challenging it is working in the insurance industry and trying to get the real story out when it comes to life insurance and annuities. There's just so much inaccurate and misleading and just downright defamatory information about those products in the public domain.
Yeah. Which is, I mean, people are entitled to their opinions. That's for sure. There's lots of opinions in the financial world.
Well, you know what they say about opinions though, Hunter.
Yeah. And if you have a platform like a magazine or a news source, you should be taking a little more, I don't know, responsibility and doing.
Journalistic integrity is hard to find these days at times. But the bigger issue, I think, is that a lot of these journalists are relying on other information they find on the internet, or they're sourcing other stories from other credible journalists instead of going firsthand and finding the information out themselves. So, I mean, I could go on all day about the
I was going to say that's a whole nother rabbit trail.
Exactly.
But that's awesome that you're there to help, keep that credibility, to keep those things in line. Because I don't think that's there a lot from a lot of things.
No, and I'm doing it, because I love to educate people about this industry and our products and our distribution models. I really enjoy working with journalists because then I can be a resource to them going forward, and they feel comfortable talking to me so that they get not only the information right, but then they look like an authority on what they're writing about too.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're credible.
And they don't have, people from our side of the industry disparaging them and saying how bad they suck. Yeah.
Yeah, there's that too.
So is this the business, or do you have other plans of building other businesses outside of this? I know you mentioned that you invest as well.
No, I actually run 3 businesses and a nonprofit. So I have a nonprofit that educates people about annuities called the Society for Annuity Facts and Education, or SAFE, or as I like to say, simplifying annuities for everyone.
Love it.
Then I also have a consulting business. Hunter and I were talking about that a little bit. I'm lucky that today I don't have to deal with objections from insurance companies on, I don't want to work with a 20-something-year-old girl. I've been doing this long enough that I've established a great deal of credibility, and my consulting practice is thriving. I assist insurance companies in their product development and competitive intelligence, new product rolls out, entering new distributions, product ideation, things like that. And then I run a real estate investment firm where I buy distressed houses and my husband and I fix them up and then we rent them out. But part of that business, I also own a bed and breakfast. So I'm a busy lady.
Yeah. Jeez, you do need help.
Are you the
I
one
do. It takes a village. It really does.
Huh.
Are you the one that gets to greet people like at the bed and breakfast? Because I feel like
I give it to my husband. I love to, because I love meeting people, but I'll talk forever. And that's not good because the kids are waiting at home for dinner.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. We know how
And
that.
my husband is the hottest man alive. So I always joke that I like to give our guests a treat.
I give her a guess.
You're a lot of fun.
I mean, I think you're a treat too, because you're great to talk to. So
yeah.
I mean, you get
Well,
both.
thank you. I appreciate that. He's a little bit better at being succinct in his communication than I am.
I think that's a skill, and I don't have that skill.
I'm working on
Me
it.
neither. I'm a talker. He's a listener.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, you seem to be someone who has large bandwidth. So it probably wouldn't be unreasonable to say you could do all this on your own, but
I did do all of it on my own for a while.
all of that, not just, okay, my goodness.
I'm just really good at identifying the things that only I can do and subcontracting out the rest of it. So even when I didn't have employees, I hired out mowing my lawn because I knew that somebody other than myself could mow the lawn for way less than what I would have to charge if I were working, for example. So
what did you get? What did you get from that? What was on the other side of that cost for you? What was the reward?
So at the time that I made that decision, my hourly rate was $750. And so for me, it was just like, okay, pay somebody $40 and I can keep working and make $750, or waste everybody's time and me do the $40 job.
Right.
So everything in my life that I can subcontract out to somebody else, whether it's doing my laundry or mowing the lawn or doing the grocery shopping, those things I subcontract out to other people so that I can focus on the things that only I can do. And I learned that way before I even learned to delegate to my employees.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the time versus money trade-off.
Yeah.
It's a hard thing to give up something that's become part of your identity, which I think a lot of entrepreneurs or businesses or what they do becomes part of their identity. And then and I mean, there's that aspect of control. Nobody can do it as good as I am. I know that's another stumbling block of small business ownership is you're never going to be able to scale because you can never give it up. Because it didn't just cost, what was it, $40 an hour. It also costs giving up something that you had control of, trusting that someone else is going to do it. I mean, mowing the lawn is different than someone taking over administrative duties, but giving someone hope on the other side.
It was like spend time with my family or mow the lawn, So, and fill in the blank here where mow the lawn is, make dinner, do
whatever
laundry,
it is for you. Yeah.
It was just like, I only have so many hours in the day and I have so much that I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I need to maximize my time with my family. And that means I need to focus on what are the things that only I can do and then find ways to outsource the rest of it. And I would say that has been the secret to my success as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Being able to delegate and give up.
Yeah. I mean, it's so powerful. Yeah. Just that, and it's clear too. Like once you realize how much your time is worth, you're like, oh, okay, I probably shouldn't be doing all that other stuff. But at the same time, it's still very hard to give it up.
At
first, then you learn to do it, and then you try to give up everything. I think no.
As there's also something to be said for seasonality.
That's true, Hunter. I will tell you, I've started asking my staff to go pick up anniversary cards for my husband.
Let me reel that back.
You wouldn't be doing that day one of starting this business. Like, there's a difference between doing that in the startup phase or the beginning phase and reaching a point. Because that's another thing is, I came in thinking I was going to be able to hold all these boundaries and my priorities, God, family, business. But I mean, it's not as black and white and as organized as I would like it to be. It's ebbs and flows and rhythms. And I mean, some months it makes sense for me to have someone do my laundry or go get my car washed mechanically. But other months I'm like, no, I need to do that. That's just the season we're in. One day. And I can afford to do that more so than someone with a family. Yeah. Just for someone out there hearing, I need to give up what I'm doing right now in the startup phase or beginning phase. That's not what we're talking about. Awesome. I feel like we've asked the question. We just stumbled upon it.
Yeah. Our normal question is, what's the most like challenging thing you've done that you've learned the most from? But I think you've already. Is there more?
I actually have a story for that.
All right, let's go.
If you want to hear it.
Absolutely.
So, Hunter, do you sell annuities with guaranteed lifetime withdrawal benefits on them?
PLB, yes. Yep.
Okay. So I developed GLWBs.
Yeah.
So when I developed GLWBs, I was only 24 years old. And I developed the second one ever on a variable annuity and decided I thought it would be a good idea to put it on a fixed annuity as well as an indexed annuity, because I had done research that showed that annuitization, which is the value proposition of annuities, was only used by 2% of people who bought annuities. And the number one value prop was being used 2%. So when I tried to find out why was that, I found out it was because the agents lose control of the money. The agents don't get paid on annuitization, and the client loses control of their money as well. So the GLWB overcomes those objections. And I knew I was onto something, that I could use that on a fixed or indexed annuity, not to provide a guarantee against a lost product like on a variable annuity, but to provide that guaranteed lifetime income component. So I set my sights high and decided that I was going to go into the number one selling company of indexed annuities and pitch my idea. And I'm not going to name the company, but I will say it's one of the biggest names in insurance today. Okay. So I go into this office and I'm surrounded by 10 of the biggest, most important people at this insurance company. And I've got my suit on, my hair is done, my makeup's on point, I'm looking good. I'm making a good presentation here, and I've practiced again and again in front of the mirror. I know I'm going to kill it. So I start this presentation, and I'm in the middle of it, and the chief marketing officer cuts me off. And he says, "Darling, I've got pimples on my ass that are older than you. Why should I listen to anything you've got to say?" And I was so jarred, not because he was condescending to me as a young woman, but just because I couldn't believe someone in an insurance company in a power position like that would say something so disrespectful. So I was really taken aback, and I just paused for a moment, and I convinced him that he needed to listen to me, because if he didn't, I was taking my idea to his competitors. And he said, "Well, darling, we are the competition," because they were the number one seller of indexed annuities in the country. And what came out of that meeting was that I told them that they were not eligible to work with me.
Good.
And they still have not been eligible to consult with me since. But what happened was that I developed imposter syndrome. Are you guys familiar with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I very much began doubting myself, my self-worth. I undercharged for everything for years and years, because I didn't think people would pay for it, because I was this young girl.
Right.
I didn't give myself enough credit and didn't put myself on equal footing with other men who did things similar to myself. And I would say that overall, I undervalued myself for more than a decade of my career just because of that guy saying that. And so if I could go back and do anything different, I would give myself a pep talk and say, that guy's just a jerk. He doesn't represent every 65-year-old white guy in the life insurance industry. He's just a jerk. The jerks are everywhere.
Yeah.
Don't let him get you down.
Yeah, I don't, that was my first thought. If someone asked me a question like that in the board meeting, I'd be like, you're right. I'm going. Bye. Yeah, I don't want to work with you either.
Yeah. Well, I'm assuming they're not number one anymore.
Well, I'm not
They're
going to answer
contenders.
just so people don't know who they are.
I'm pretty
That's
sure I
fair.
know.
That's fair. I'm just thinking, because that mindset, if that is throughout the boardroom, that's not how you stay number one.
Well, I will say that the other people in that room did not have the same opinion as him. And they were very vocal in communicating that to me afterward. So it was just that guy. And really, that should have been very clear to me at that point when other people were coming up to me and saying, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. You know, we definitely don't feel that way. Or we really liked your idea. This is magnificent. You know, can you tell us more? Those things should have validated me, but I was just so stuck and focused on that one thing he said and really stuck on it for more than a decade.
Yeah. That's such a lesson too. The one negative thing we sit and give value to more so than the multiple positive perspectives. What would have changed if it floated away and you had the 6 voices be the overwhelming. Yeah. Yep. That's very interesting. Good lesson. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you bet.
You've got a few good lessons in there, right?
I think we're going to do like 20 episodes and then go back and start re-interviewing everyone, because almost every time we're like, we need more time.
Yeah. Well, my employees picked my title for me and they call me Chief Storyteller. I think it's appropriate.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, the transparency too, it's great. If it sounds really good and it's all pretty and nothing bad happens, I'm like, is it real? I don't know.
I promise you, I'm 100% real.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't think you'd make that up.
No. Yeah. That's super encouraging. Well, how can we be helping you? How can our listeners be helping you? Is there anything that we can be doing?
Really, I think the best thing is just to help people like Hunter to figure out who I am and what I do, because the only people who I don't get paid by is insurance agents. Mm-hmm. I serve as a resource for the masses, though. I want people to know I'm out here. I'm on your side. I'm trying to look out for you and do what's best for our profession. And the people who I work with the most are insurance agents. I don't charge them anything, though, because I identify with them and I know what it's like to do what you do. And there's nobody watching out for you but you, because the insurance company wants you to sell and the FMO wants you to sell. So really, it's up to you to watch out for your business. And I know how hard that can be in a world with 80 different insurance companies selling 4,000 different annuities and, 800 different life insurance products. It's hard to weed through the noise. So I just want people to know that I'm out there.
Yeah, we might have to collaborate on a class. It sounds like, I mean, those free resources you have are valuable educational pieces for an agent too, I'm assuming, for consumer education.
Oh yeah, they would be, but I think most insurance agents are of the opinion that what I provide should be given to them for free by their FMO, and we charge. So that's the biggest reason why most agents don't do business with us.
Gotcha. Okay.
But that doesn't preclude me from sending my information to insurance agents. I still do it every day.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, the collaborative coming together and teaching some classes or doing something where it's
then you can push them to the FMOs that are taking your advice, right?
Well, here's the ironic thing: all the FMOs use us.
Okay, got it. But they're just not disseminating that information very well.
Yeah, they use it for themselves usually.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense.
That is not surprising. Well,
but I appreciate you asking what you can do to help. Thank you. I think the biggest thing is just to help make people more aware of me, and probably to follow me on social media, just because I put a lot of education out on my feed. I think Hunter can attest to that. Mm-hmm. So having people follow me, I have a free newsletter that goes out to over 100,000 people every week that has all the life insurance and annuity news in the entire country taken off every piece of the web and put into one newsletter every Tuesday. So
we'll
that's
get you
helpful too.
Yeah, we were talking about it at the beginning of the episode. We'll get you plugged in to the Facebook group so you can be posting stuff there as well.
Cool.
Yeah. And then if you want to, if you have the sign up for all that stuff, we'll put it in the show notes in your website and all that stuff so people can connect with you.
Great. I'll email it to you, Hunter. Thank you.
Most welcome.
I appreciate you guys.
Yeah, we appreciate you making time for us and suffering through all these technical difficulties.
Yeah.
That's okay. You know, it's Murphy's Law, and this is our world of technology today, right?
Well, we came in, it's always been raw. It always was supposed to be real. So the fact that we're having technical difficulties while we're trying to do something that's a value add in part of our entrepreneurial journey is just the proof's in the pudding.
That's our transparency, right?
Yeah, yeah. We're posting this.
Way to go. It didn't faze me for what it's worth.
No, not at all. Awesome. Well, we appreciate you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. Have a good night.
You too.